What's up, guys? Dodgers Randy here with yet another weekly update. We are moving along, finally in 2019. I hope you guys had a great New Year's Eve, but it's starting to feel like it's time to go for baseball season. I don't know if it's because we're now in January and we can actually say we're going to see baseball this year or what it is, but for some reason, since it's hit January, I am ready to go and want baseball to start as soon as possible. But before we get into anything, I want to ask you guys a question, and you can let me know in the comments. And kind of as we go through this, maybe it'll help you decide a little bit more. But I want to know what you guys think the Dodgers' biggest need right now is, whether it's filling catcher, second base, outfield, relief pitching, starting, whatever you think it is. What do you think is the most important thing that they need to look for right now, player, position-wise, or like I said, pitcher? And let me know in the comments, and let me know who you think that player should be, whether it means trading prospects, but keep in mind that it has to be realistic, and you have to be, if you're wanting to trade, just understand that you'd be having to give up. Think about what you'd have to give up. So yeah, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, but other than that, let's get into this. Another not so exciting week for our Dodgers. Really not for anyone. It's been kind of slow since the last few signings. Still waiting on Harper, still waiting on Machado, and it seems like nobody's going to get much interest until those things happen. So hopefully they sign soon, because this is just, people want to know what's going on. I mean, pitchers and catchers report in 40 days, and a few teams out there, not all of them, not most of them, but like us, don't even know who our set roster is going to be, and in my mind, don't even know who our catcher is going to be. Personally, I'm not that comfortable with Austin Barnes being our catcher full-time. If he is, of course, I'm going to support the guy, but I would like to see them upgrade offensively a little bit more. But anyways, we also have 3 weeks from tomorrow, Dodgers have their annual FanFest coming up. It is on January 26th. And I think it starts at 10 a.m. It's a really fun event. It's free. Just make sure you print your ticket online before you come. Otherwise, they're going to make you stand in line and deal with it on your phone, or have it on your phone, whatever's easiest for you. But if you have the chance to go, I highly suggest you go. I'm pretty sure they break the attendance record for themselves every year. More and more people show up. It's a great place to just meet up with friends from the season, and just to kind of be back in that place that we all love, which is Dodger Stadium. So I hope to see you guys there. I will, of course, be there. Going to try to get some autographs, but I will also just be wandering around the stadium, just to be happy to be back at home. So hope to see you guys there. And yeah, so the one thing I wanted to start adding to these were birthdays to players that have passed every week. Not necessarily because they're that important, but just because to acknowledge them. And I think it also kind of let some people know the ages of our guys, which we don't all know, especially me, so I like to do it for myself anyways. But we had 3 birthdays within the last week. We had Dylan Floro, he's on December 27th, and he just turned 28. I thought he was a little bit older, so that's great. Austin Barnes, actually, his birthday's the day after, and he's actually a year older than Dylan Floro. I knew Barnes was 28, but like I said, I never would have guessed Floro was only 27 at the time. So that actually makes me really happy, because I like what Floro's done for this team, and knowing he's young enough to continue is always a great thing. Not worrying about him being 33, 34, whatever it is, before it's a big issue. So hopefully they can continue to work with him, and we can use that arm for a few more years. And then, of course, we can never forget the greatest left-handed pitcher. I mean, nothing against Kershaw, but with the legacy, I have to say it, but it was Sandy Koufax's birthday on December 30th, and he turned 83 years old. So happy birthday to those guys. Hopefully they enjoyed it. Hope to see Sandy around the field even more next year. He was there a lot this year, so maybe see him at spring training. That would be cool. I know he kind of stopped that, but anyways, let's get into the stuff that everybody wants to know about. What's going on with the team? I'm going to jump into Harper first, because I feel like that's the biggest talking subject. Unfortunately, we still haven't signed him. I want him. Some people do, some people don't. But we did get a little bit more information about other teams. There's been nothing new about the Dodgers coming out, nothing new about that they've actually offered him a contract or any of those things. However, there was an article, or at first something came out that said the White Sox and the Phillies were the two teams outside of the Nationals who offered him a 10-year deal, that they were willing to give him a 10-year deal. But a couple hours after that came out on Twitter, an article came out and it said the White Sox won't offer more than 7 years. It seems like the White Sox have their eyes set a little bit more on Machado maybe, but they said they just 7 years is what they would give him, and the Phillies are willing to give him that 10-year deal. I think they're a little bit more on, I want to say, the desperate side of things, needing him to they really want him to get over there because they're still trying to build up that young team. The Phillies have a decent team. They don't necessarily need Harper. They could just add a few other guys, whether it's AJ Pollock or whatever outfielders are out there they can trade, free agents. But right now, according to John Heyman on Twitter, the White Sox seem to be kind of a long shot for Harper. And so he is supposed to be meeting with the Phillies in the next week or two face-to-face. And John Heyman does say that, of course, there's always the chance a mystery team or teams can jump in and steal Harper from anyone. That includes us. I just, you know what, as long as he doesn't go to an NL West team, which I don't think will happen, if he doesn't go to us, I can live with it. I don't want to see him on another NL West team for some reason. Not that it's been legit, but people have talked about the Giants. I don't think there's any chance that happened, but that would be terrible if that happened. But like I was talking about the Nationals, there came out a story today by Jim Bowden from The Athletic that apparently the Nationals made another offer for Harper that is much more than the original 10-year, $300 million they offered him. Reports before this were saying there was no way the Nationals were going to go more than 10 years, $300 million, but now that's apparently not true. I forget where I read this. I apologize, I don't have the source, but Bryce Harper and his agent, Scott Boras, actually met with Nationals owner for about 5 hours on the Saturday before Christmas. So the Nationals aren't backing out, and they've spent a good chunk of money on Patrick Corbin, and so going after Harper, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming after the big Patrick Corbin signing and saying that they wouldn't go more than 10 years, $30 million or $300 million. So that one's an interesting one. I still think the Dodgers are the top choice, but I still think Boras and Harper want to beat out that record deal. So in my personal opinion, I feel like Harper would rather go to the Nationals than go to Philly for 10 years, White Sox for 7 years. If he didn't care so much about the large contract, which we don't really know outside of what Boras has told us. I don't know if that's 100% true. But the way things are leaning, I'm almost starting to think the Nationals might be the top runner right now. He has his history there, his fan base. He's played there his whole career. So those teams are always sneaky. And if they're willing to pay him what he wants, I see him taking the Nationals over the Phillies. It would just, it makes sense to me that he'd want to go back to his old team. And in my mind, the Nationals are a better team than the Phillies. So if winning is important, you'd think you go to the Dodgers out of all the options. But if the contract and winning is important, then I see him going back to the Nationals. But moving on from Harper, because it's all we hear about right now, we'll move on to another one that we can't stop hearing about, but at least, I mean, not at least, but the talks have died down a lot. A rival exec had said to, I don't know if he said it to Ken Rosenthal, but this was in an article on The Athletic by Ken Rosenthal. And a rival's exec actually said that it seems less likely with time that the Indians will trade Corey Kluber or Trevor Bauer. It just seems like they're more aggressive on acquiring cheap roster fillers than completing a blockbuster with a starting pitcher, is what the article mentioned. So the whole Kluber thing, the reason why his name initially got brought up was because the Indians wanted to cut payroll. Well, now that they've done that by trading, I think it was, oh man, was it Edwin Encarnacion? I believe it was him. There's been so many trades going on with guys in the American League between the Mariners and everything going on that, God, now I'm hating this. I think it was him, but they cleared payroll either way. And so now they're kind of not necessarily trying to get rid of Kluber because they've put together a good team that can compete and they can still hold on to Kluber, which I think is like $15 million a year, $13 million a year, which is a great price for someone like him. And Bauer's not extremely, but less expensive than Kluber. I believe. I haven't actually looked at his contract numbers because I haven't really seen too much connection with him and the Dodgers. And he's younger, so the Indians could be pretty dangerous. I kind of had wished they would have worked out a deal with them and sent like Puig and Jock and maybe even Wood and a prospect over to the Indians and gotten Kluber that way, because the Indians are in need of an outfielder instead of us having to now give up our right fielder, Puig, and then prospects on top of that, and maybe an outfielder, whether it's Jock, whoever it may be, Verdugo. So we'll see what happens there, but it's, according to them, it's looking less likely. And then also, moving on to the catcher side of things, the Marlins are still on a good one. They do not want to give up Real Muto without getting a killer deal out of it. They faced a lot of criticism when they traded Stanton, Ozuna, and Yelich, that they didn't do good enough. So they're really holding on tight, and they don't feel like they have to let him go right now. But it would be the smarter move, because according to Ken Rosenthal, he was on MLB Network, he just thinks that, and I agree with this, it makes so much sense. It's going to be harder for them to trade him if they wait till the deadline. It's harder for a catcher to go from team to team and having to learn new pitchers on the fly versus having the chance to go to spring training. And almost I don't think there's a team out there who's going to start their season off not having the catcher spot filled. So if the Dodgers don't get Real Muto, I don't think they're going to trade for him at the deadline. It makes no sense, because they're going to want someone for the first few months of the season and have them set in place, comfortable with the pitchers, make sure the pitchers are comfortable with them, and having good hitting. So I don't know what the Marlins are doing, but they're still trying to ask for Cody Bellinger. They want to, I think it was a 0 to 3 year major league player. So Cody Bellinger, been in the league for almost 2 years, and prospects. So they're asking for guys like, I think it's Bellinger. They're also wanting, I think, Verdugo. So they're getting a little crazy, I think. And it's just, I just don't think it's not looking good unless they lower their price. And there's so many teams, I feel like, in on Real Muto, even though some catchers are signing, so there's obviously less. But we'll have to wait and see. Our Yasmani Grandal, he was in talks. I don't know if you guys heard this. I think this was before last week. No, I think it did come out within the last week. But he was in talks with the Mets about a 4-year, $60 million offers. But according to LA Times, it was more of a discussion. It wasn't officially an offer and saying, here, we'll give you this, and he turned it down. So they ended up signing a different catcher, and Yasmani's running out of options here. It kind of seems like there's not many left at this point. And what I had read last was saying he would be willing to take a shorter term deal, or that's what they're thinking, because it doesn't sound like he's getting the interest. And whether his stock went down because of his poor performance in the playoffs, I mean, the guy has never been successful in the playoffs with us. I think like half of his at-bats, like around, 60, 70 at-bats, like half of those are strikeouts. He had so many errors in the playoffs, even throughout the regular year. He's a great framer, but he's tough to watch behind the plate at times. Really good arm, much better than Barnes. Personally, if he was a stopgap catcher and we signed him to a 1-year deal, I would love that. I don't know if that's possibly on Grandal's mind, unless he wants to prove a point and go have a year out there, whether it's with the Dodgers or another team, and try to prove that he can do better in the postseason and also not have so many passed balls or dropped balls, whatever it may be, and prove to teams that he actually deserves a bigger contract. So I wouldn't be upset with him if he came back for 1 year. I'm definitely not his biggest fan the way he's performed, but he's a really good hitting catcher. He's streaky as hell, but the dude can hit. He's one of the top 3 hitting catchers in baseball. The graph that I've looked at has Posey up there. I don't think it's really all that fair to count Posey as a catcher, just because he doesn't really play there anymore. He's more of a first baseman. Last I've seen, it seemed like they had Nick Hundley behind the plate a lot. And actually, speaking of that, his name came up as a possibility of the Dodgers signing him. I don't know if there's any real traction behind that, but I'm going to say this right now, personally. You're going to go and trade away Yasiel Puig. I don't want to see that guy Nick Hundley on our team. That's when that Puig got into it with the Giants catcher, when they got into that whole kind of, I don't want to call it a brawl, but that scuffle behind the plate where Puig hit him in the helmet. So I hope that's not true. I haven't heard anything that's actually making me think it is, but we shall see. But other than that, oh, so the Dodgers have shown interest, which is one that I only read about in The Athletic. Haven't seen it anywhere else, but this one's interesting to me. So they've shown interest in the Cardinals' Jose Martinez. He is 30. However, Rosenthal doesn't think the Cardinals want to move him because he's a strong offensive player. His slash line in 2018 was 305, 364, and 457 with an 821 OPS. That's pretty good. And the guy hasn't even hit arbitration yet because I think he was very slow in getting to the big leagues. The only thing with him is they did mention that his defense is a concern. However, he's been playing, I think, first base for the Cardinals, but they did say his outfield defense is better. So he is an outfielder. I think he's a right-hander. I should have looked that up. But that to me sounds pretty good. It would depend on what they'd have to give up. I don't know how good he is. I've never actually paid attention to him. It was a funny name that came up and I was interested by it. But as always, teams will say players don't want to move, but if you offer them the right thing, they will move them. And speaking of prospects, Baseball America actually updated their prospect list and it came out today for the Dodgers. So the Dodgers top 10 changed a little bit. I thought it was still Verdugo. It's not. Kyber Ruiz has now taken over the Dodgers' #1 spot as their top prospect. He's actually, by Baseball America, he's now the best catching prospect in baseball. So I don't want to see that guy go anywhere. Some people have mentioned his name and trading him for Real Muto, but he's 19 years old and he just seems like a stud, good behind the plate, good with the bat, and he's so young that he could give us years and years and years before his body gets beat up back there. I don't think the Dodgers want to move him. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever that he would start this year on the roster. I think that's why they're pushing so hard, him and Will Smith. They say the earliest we'd see him is the end of September. You never know with injuries, but I doubt he'd come up being only 19 years old. So that could be interesting, but I could see him being on the starting roster in 2020 if he has a solid season this year. I still think he's in AA, last I checked. So we'll have to see how that goes. But as for the rest of their top 10 prospects, Verdugo's moved down to #2. So see how that goes when it comes to in trade talks, if people are now wanting Ruiz more than Verdugo. I don't think the Dodgers will do it, but yeah, Verdugo's moved down to 2. Then we've got our shortstop, Gavin Lux. Heard a lot of great things about him. And then Dustin May, same thing, #4 prospect, right-handed pitcher. A lot of great comparisons about him. And then our other catcher, Will Smith, our #5. They have Caleb Ferguson on the list at #6. I didn't realize he would still be considered a prospect, but you know what? They're the professionals, not me. I guess that means he hasn't spent enough time in the majors for them to think that he won't be a prospect and that he'll maybe not even start the season on the Dodgers opening day roster. So we'll see how that goes. I hope they have him. I'd like to see him more of a starter, but he was solid out of the bullpen. And then there's also Dennis Santana, the right-handed pitcher. We saw him make his debut in Colorado this year. He hit that ball off the wall and almost hit a home run his first at bat, ended up a double. He's a lot of fun to watch. He crushes the ball. He has a lot of, sorry, I'm missing the word here. He's good. That's what I can say. So he had, I think it was shoulder surgery, unfortunately after, I think he had one more start after the Colorado one, and then he had to miss the rest of the season. The Colorado game was in June, I believe, of last year. And then he shortly had surgery, I think, within like the next month and a half after that. So I don't know his return time. I know he's been working out and he's been in Arizona rehabbing and getting back his groove, I guess you want to say. Probably not the right word, but whatever. So hopefully he gets healthy. And we can have him back too. Good right-handed pitcher. We need our righties. And then there's our #8 guy is Tony Gonsolin, right-handed pitcher. I've heard the name, don't know anything about him. Mitchell White, another right-handed pitcher, coming in at #9. And then DJ Peters, who's our outfielder, coming in at #10. A lot of Dodger fans started hearing about him last year at spring training. He killed it when he was out there. He's also the guy that if you heard about when Bumgarner was making his rehab start, he hit 2 home runs off Bumgarner in that game. And hit 2 home runs off Bumgarner in that game. So that guy's a Dodger, but he's an outfielder, big right-handed guy. So I don't know how soon they would call him up. Maybe September call-ups, but he's definitely a good one to keep an eye on. Good power bat, and we could use him. However, the Dodgers did sign a free agent outfielder a couple days ago. His name is Shane Peterson. He has an MLB spring training invitation to go with the club. However, he is 30 years old, so he's good, but he's not one of those guys that's coming to the team to jump in a starting roster spot unless he goes out there and kills it at spring training. Who knows? He batted .286 with a .793 OPS in AAA last year for the Padres, and he plays all three outfield positions and also has experience at first base, so that could work to his advantage. He can play corner spots, center field, whatever they need if an injury occurs. That's kind of JP Hernstra. I read his newsletter. It's really interesting about the Dodgers. You guys can check him out. His last name is spelled Hoornstra. Yeah. So check him out. He has plenty of information. His newsletter is awesome, but he's the one that had said he doesn't expect the Dodgers to use this as a new starter, but that he expects it to be a guy that replaces if they get injured. And then for the next guy they signed, minor league infielder, I haven't heard any big sources release this yet. Jacob Rudner, he is a lead expert for Dodgers Way, has the sources and said that the Dodgers signed Daniel Castro, minor league infielder. Shortstop, he's been added to the AAA roster apparently. He's 26 years old, debuted with the Rockies last year. He had 46 career major league at-bats, and he's hitting below 200 with a home run and six RBIs. But in the minors, he was hitting 284, so we will see if that kind of translates to anything. Again, another guy that JP mentioned would really only be if it comes down to a injury. And then the only other signing they did, unfortunately, all of these are minor league contracts, was a big right-hander, 27-year-old. Hasn't played in the big leagues yet. They could still work with him though. Dodgers are great with that. But he's actually German born. His name's Marcus Solbach. He plays in the Australian Baseball League, and Adelaide Bite is the team he plays for. They're actually the ones who announced it on Twitter that he signed with the team. So he spent a lot of time in the minor leagues with the Twins and D-backs. He's had a really hard time when he's with the major league teams, but in Australia, oh man, I'm struggling right now. In Australia, he had a .43 ERA and a 55-7 strikeout to walk ratio, which is great. We could use that. But he hasn't pitched with an affiliated team since he had a 3.56 ERA, which they actually didn't mention what year that was, so I don't have that for you, but his numbers were not very good at all. Then he had a 7.9 strikeout rate over 9 innings against his 2.1 walking, and then that was through 65 innings with Arizona's Class A affiliate. So he struggled in minor leagues, not necessarily a good thing to look for, but he's doing really well in the ABL. So I'm hoping that the Dodgers can work with him, see where he ends up. But yeah, he's never pitched above single A, so we'll have to see how that goes. But other than that, that's it for this week. I know it's kind of a long one. Sorry about that. Tried to keep it as quick as possible. Didn't realize it was taking so long. But as always, appreciate your guys' support. If you can hit that subscribe button below, and if you like the update, please hit the like button. I appreciate it. And I will catch up with you guys next week, hopefully with a lot more information. All right. Bye, guys.